Hi everyone, welcome to my living room. Kind of out of my office for a while because I'm remodeling and air painting and that kind of thing. So welcome to my living room. Yes, right back here, that is a framed print of dogs playing poker. So now you know what kind of things I put in my house, right? Anyway, they're about as strange as the things that I put in your learning modules, apparently. I was so super psyched to find a video based on a Snoop Dogg song that could help explain the Wilmot Proviso and the Talmadge Amendment or the Talmadge Act. So I'm super excited about that and happy to share those with you. As for me, I'm just here to record for you a brief kind of summary or introduction to the chapter. So Chapter 11 is A Nation on the Move, Westward Expansion from 1800 to 1860. We've talked a lot about westward expansion in this class, mainly because the whole history of the United States is based on westward expansion. You know, we started on the East Coast with the few colonies, and we kind of crept a little further along, further along, further along. It's all been about going west. So in this particular chapter, we're talking from about 1800 to the 1860s. We're going to cover Lewis and Clark, the Missouri Crisis, which will include a compromise that you're probably familiar with, Texas attempts at independence, the Mexican-American War, and the Compromise of 1850. So here's a brief summary about all of those. In 1803, Thomas Jefferson appointed Meriwether Lewis to organize an expedition into this new Louisiana territory to explore it and to map it out, to find out what was in this territory. I mean, at this point, we've paid money for something, we've got a great deal for it, we have absolutely no idea what we bought. And in the middle of this, they're also supposed to be looking for an all-water route from the Missouri River to the Pacific coast. The Louisiana Purchase and the journey of Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery captured the imagination of many people who dedicated themselves to the economic exploitation of Western lands. And in the South, the Adams-Onis Treaty legally secured Florida for the United States, although it really did nothing to curb the fight between the Seminole and the American expansionists in that area. At the same time, the treaty frustrated those Americans who considered Texas to be part of the Louisiana Purchase. Taking matters into their own hands, some of the American settlers tried to take Texas by force. The Missouri Crisis created a division over slavery that very much shaped sectional differences and identities and rivalries that will continue and leading up to the Civil War. Conflict over the balance between slave and free states in Congress came to a head when Missouri requested to enter the Union as a slave state in 1819. So at that particular point, there were an equal number of slave states and free states, 11 of each. But Missouri wanted to enter as a slave state, which would mean there would be one extra. So the compromise here was to add two states at the same time. Missouri would be admitted as a slave state, and Maine would be entered as a free state. Now, the Missouri Compromise also set the Mason-Dixon line. It's the 3630 parallel that set the official boundary for slavery. The idea was that nothing above it could be entered as a slave state, but the states below it would be. So now it gets confusing because Missouri was above the line. So basically the border between Missouri and what is now Arkansas is that Mason-Dixon line. So Missouri, yes, is above the line, but it was the last state above the line that was admitted as a slave state. The establishment of the Lone Star Republic formed a new chapter in the history of U.S. westward expansion. In contrast to the addition of the Louisiana Territory through diplomacy with France, Americans in Texas used violence against Mexico in order to achieve their goals. So, orchestrated largely by slaveholders, the acquisition of Texas appeared the next logical step in creating an American empire that included slavery. Nonetheless, with the Missouri Compromise in mind, the U.S. refused the Texans' request to enter the United States as a slave state in 1836. Instead, Texas formed an independent republic at that point where slavery was legal. But American settlers there continued to press for more land. And this strained relationship between expansionists in Texas and in Mexico in the early 1840s hinted at things that would come. And the things to come that I mentioned in the last summary is actually the Mexican-American War, which took place from 1846 to 1848. President James K. Polk's administration was a period of intensive expansion for the United States. After overseeing the final details regarding the annexation of Texas from Mexico, Polk negotiated a peaceful settlement with Great Britain regarding ownership of the Oregon Country. So that brought the U.S. the states of Washington and Oregon. The acquisition of additional lands from Mexico, a country many in the U.S. perceived as weak and inferior, was not so bloodless. The Mexican secession added nearly half of Mexico's territory to the United States, including New Mexico and California, and it established the U.S.-Mexico border at the Rio Grande. The California gold rush rapidly expanded and also prompted new concerns over immigration, especially immigration from China. So the big question through all of this is, what kind of state will you be? Will you be free or will you be slave? The Missouri Compromise supposedly handled that, but acquisition of these lands from Mexico in 1848 brought the topic of slavery back up again. The suggestion that slavery be barred from the Mexican cession caused a lot of debate between the North and South, and honestly, it split the Democratic Party too, when many Northern members left to create the Free Soil Party. Although the Compromise of 1850 resolved the question of whether slavery would be allowed in new territories, the solution really didn't make anyone happy at all. So one thing, just to throw in a little fact about Arkansas history here, one thing that I think is interesting is that in 1836, when Texas requested to join the Union but was denied, Arkansas was admitted to the Union. And it's because of a quick-thinking senator, or actually a quick-thinking territorial representative named Ambrose Sevier. Now, Sevier had been part of Arkansas talks about statehood for quite some time, and the general consensus of Sevier himself and the governor and others in the state was that Arkansas just was not ready to become a state. It was known for its lawlessness. It was not self-sufficient at all, and as Arkansas territory, it was federally funded. So statehood would have been a financial crisis for Arkansas at that time. However, upon learning that California was making a request for statehood as a free state, Sevier jumped at the chance to make Arkansas enter the Union as a slave state, because at this point, they're kind of doing a twofer, one free, one slave. So Sevier jumped at the opportunity in order to institutionalize slavery for the state. And of course, all the concerns that he and the others had to begin with did come to fruition. I mean, the state was not self-sufficient. We weren't collecting enough tax money to really fund any of our work that we were doing. The lawlessness was horrible, and all of the problems that come with that. But anyway, I think it's always interesting to kind of know what's going on closer to home when we talk about these larger events that seem to be happening everywhere around us, but we don't really talk so much about what happens in Arkansas. So I hope you guys enjoy this chapter, and I hope you really enjoy the Snoop Dogg rap.